This session was a relatively late addition to the agenda, actually. We were originally hoping to do a kind of debate session on this kind of topic. It's a very contentious one. It's one that's kind of caused stoked a lot of controversy, I guess, within the industry recently off the back of, I'm sure all of you are familiar, right, with the mega lag video? Yes? Anyone not heard of mega lag? No? Yeah. Okay, I think we're all largely on the same page here. That came out in late December, I think it was, last year. Obviously a lot of criticism from the influencers themselves around how honey were being deployed and what effect that was having on the creator and influencer space in particular from an attribution and kind of rewarding perspective. And there's been several responses since. I think most notably the ex-founder of PayPal, Ryan, who has now launched a new solution with Pi, responded on the Ask Me Anything subreddit. And it was a really detailed critique where he kind of like went through a lot of what Mega Lag's accusations were and kind of pretty constructively kind of pulled a lot of them apart. And I just wanted to have a space within today's session at least where we could look at things maybe a little bit more objectively. We've been talking in the last couple of days about kind of how emotional and emotive I think the topic had become off the back of that particular video. And I don't really want to focus too much on that particular incident and make this more of a general conversation around, you know, not just toolbars and browser extensions, but actually, you know, how do affiliates coexist when they're largely, you know, being used as levers, marketing levers in various sections of the marketing funnel. So how do those upper awareness kind of building influencers coexist with maybe something that's much closer to the conversion and you're all trying to do that maybe on a CPA? That's quite a difficult thing for advertisers to manage a lot of the time. So this is obviously an opportunity for us to do that. So yeah, we'll do a little bit of an intro. Anyone that was in Paul's previous session knows who Paul is, but for anyone who isn't, who are you, Paul?
I'm Paul Stewart. I'm the Group Strategic Partnership Director for Awin, which means I look for the partnerships that we want to double down on and grow across that, and also try and find the new types of partner, bring them onto the network so that they can benefit the retailers that we have.
And Juan, if you want to do that introduction.
Yeah, I'm Juan Mazzotta. I'm Commercial Director for the US market at Atolls. Been in the industry for 10 years almost. Actually, next month will be my decade celebration, let's say.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I can say something more if you want about Atolls.
Well, I'll get you to elaborate on from Atolls' perspective, because what is the solution that you've obviously got within your business, and how does it, because you've got such a wide portfolio of different types of publisher properties, how does it sit alongside those?
Yeah, so I mean, at Atolls we build shopping destinations that allow users to make smart and informed decisions. We typically divide our business in 3 areas. Okay, the first one would be what we call community deals. So this is user-generated content. Users talk about and share the best deals that they can find online and also offline in certain instances. And these are sort of the upper funnel part of our business. Some of you might know Hot UK Deals, My Deals, Deals Labs, Choyometro in Spain. So this has been part of our business. Then we have rewards platforms or cashback, as you might want to call them. And then we have couponing platforms like coupons.com in the US. When it comes to shopping extensions, because obviously toolbars is such a big topic and you know they're not equal, right? So
yeah, we talked about this yesterday. I think the very fact like we need to talk about toolbars was more like a title for almost alliterative purposes, but
exactly.
Paul made the point that like toolbars isn't necessarily the right descriptive term for what we're talking about here. It's more likely to be browser extensions. Toolbars generally maybe a more of a utility function within a browser.
Which is why this is a terrible article to write about. Like, no one's going to listen to this, but there's a lot of importance to the definitions. Like, an extension is specifically something that happens within an extension store. It will be an injection into the web page. A toolbar is like, from those of you who remember, you used to have like MSN toolbar and all this other stuff you'd have that would sit under the address bar. Like, that's what the toolbar is. No one's talking about that anymore. It's not really a thing. But the difficulty is that everyone kind of confuses the things, and then that makes the conversation quite difficult. So I think the starting point is bring some clarity around these things.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the first topics I wanted to talk about is that idea of standardization. I think is that lack of standardization part of the reason why that video came about, and then maybe caught on to the degree that it did. There was just a lot of misunderstanding around how things work, what the labels are, and how they should be applied in this particular scenario.
Yeah, I think there was also a lack of research, and maybe I would suggest even not really a thought about the sensationalism was the point, right? And because it was the con, it was the scam, that was the interesting thing about it. What has subsequently happened is that it's made us look again at the things that were alleged, and a lot of it we disagree with, or a lot of the time there were things in place that weren't mentioned that actually minimize the impact of it. And I think now that we're talking about it, we need to have more of these conversations open so people can understand exactly what it is extensions do, how do networks treat them, because the way Awin treats an extension is not the same as, say, CJ will treat an extension. And we might talk about soft click, they might talk about stand down policies, like these are different bits of detail we need to get into.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem, right? Is that there wasn't an easy go-to in terms of understanding, okay, is there a problem here? What is that problem? Trying to identify it. And it's the very fact that it's so fragmented, and this is part and parcel of the affiliate channel, arguably, is that you've got that fragmentation of how different platforms do different things or govern different things. And so that means that there was no easy remedy to the question of what's actually going on here.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, these browser extensions, at least how we see them, they're just a device, right? So, and obviously there's been a lot of innovation over the years. We actually started in 2019, we acquired this company called Pouch. Some of you might remember them. It was a London-based startup that went to, I think it was called Dragon's Den, maybe?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
In the US, it's, I think, Shark Tank, maybe, something like that. Yeah, and it was one of the few companies that actually got an offer from the three dragons, I guess you could call them. And we ended up acquiring them. I guess we made a better offer for it. But over the years, we've seen the extensions develop and change and morph. And I think it's very difficult to standardize things because there are so many use cases, so many variations that you can't really find one solution that will fit all the use cases, right? So we can see it from our side. As I said before, we have top of the funnel, platforms. We have sort of the cashback and couponing solutions, which are more closer to conversion, and we can see how these things interact, and we can clearly see that user journeys are not as linear as they're described. It's not so obvious that what is actually causing the sale at the end of the day. So yeah, everything that goes into standardization, it's quite tricky, right? I do think that as an industry, it would be beneficial if at least the major players set some boundaries or some guidelines of how these things should work, but at the same time avoiding killing innovation. Okay, because you want guidelines, but you want to also keep the imagination going forward. I've seen recently that there are some extensions that created, for example, tipping systems for certain advertisers or more content creators actually. So yeah, the idea is to find a balance between control and standardization, but also letting everybody decide what's their value proposition from the publisher side and also from the advertiser side, how they value each channel and each device.
Whose responsibility do you think that is to establish what that principle looks like?
Yeah, we talked about it. I do think that affiliate networks have a big responsibility in it because at the end of the day, you're a big part of this business. Most of the tracking solutions come through the affiliate networks. I do understand there are challenges, right? You cannot have a team of 100 people just policing the internet. That's unrealistic. I do think that maybe part of it can be at the start of the publisher journey, right? So making sure that when a publisher joins a network, you understand really what their value proposition looks like, understand what the value that they want to bring to the advertisers is, and maybe over time trying to a certain extent check that what they're doing or what they claim they were doing is still the case. So.
Yeah, I think. The role of the network is to but you can make a good opinion on this. And I think not every network has done that. Awin did do this. So like in 2010, I believe it was, we came up with soft click, which, just for clarity, is basically a way to ensure that if there is an interaction from a partner that has an unfair advantage, like an extension that literally sits in the browser, it doesn't overwrite publisher interactions that have occurred earlier, as long as they're not also a soft click partner. The reason we made that is because we found it to be intuitively true that it feels like most of the value has been created earlier. We do not want to stop the value that the extension is providing to the user that's chosen to download it, but is it right that they get all of the reward for that sale? We felt not, and so that was why we rolled out SoftClick, and that was a way of sort of constraining the impact of extensions within our channel. Now, I don't think that was necessarily widely known by people, and also it's not replicated by every network. It's just some other networks have done similar solutions, and you tend to see this divide between Europe and the US, right? So in European affiliate networks will have some sort of soft-click-esque policy, and in the US you'll have these stand-down policies, which is basically legislation that will guide like when you can show an offer or not. I think the answer is some combination of two of those things. I do think we have to protect the integrity of the channel whilst we can verify and improve transparency. It's not okay to just say we need to do all this transparency and do nothing until we get there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of role to play here about trying to bring some standardization to how we're talking about extensions and how we're creating the guide rails that ensure that the integrity of the channel remains. Because it was shaken, right? Like I think a lot of retailers had thoughts about the channel reinforced when that was brought to the surface, and that's not a positive thing for us. So we need to show that we're taking that seriously.
Yeah, I mean the industry's trying so hard to kind of get away from that kind of association. I think that it set it back to a degree.
Yeah.
You're talking about standardization, and another potential forum for this would be around like the trade bodies, obviously. So. The IAB in the UK have got a code of conduct around downloadable software. That was introduced all the way back in 2010, obviously the same sort of time that SoftClick was being launched to market. That was updated 5 years later in 2015, but it's not really been evolved, I don't think, since then. Do you think that it's kind of still, you know, a worthy code of conduct? Is it something that needs to be reinvigorated?
Yeah, the IAB released it. They talk about toolbars, not extensions, so we have to follow them again.
Yeah.
So it's referenced in Awin's code of conduct as it currently sits at the moment. We're going to change it. Like we're going to remove reference to that code of conduct. We're going to write a new one. We're going to make it specific to browser extensions, and we're going to look at how we can control it ourselves centrally. SoftClick is a good way of ensuring that there is protection to the other publishers that are operating on the program. But also I want to find a way where Awin are enforcing a transparency that can be also replicated in other areas. So we will have an element of a stand-down policy that we will include there. We will start to, for those of you familiar with like the afsource equals 1 parameter has been suggested as a consistent value for identifying if there's been affiliate interactions in the journey. We're going to support that. So we're going to be appending that onto sales so that now that it's much easier to audit, you can just look for that value and you can look for the behavior. And we're also going to look for, we'll want publishers to be clear where they're using browser extensions. We'll want them to transparently say so and also link to how that extension behaves and have that public. So not only Awin can check it, but also other external third parties should be able to check it. And I think that's really the answer. You know, like sunlight is the right disinfectant here. We need to improve the transparency of it.
So, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, especially in terms of transparency. I think that's necessary to make informed decisions. When it comes to stand down and soft click and all of that, I have mixed feelings about it, right? Because at the end of the day, browser extensions do serve a purpose, right? And they're, they're a user tool more than a, creator tool, right? And I think that assuming always that they're either robbing other affiliates from their commissions and things like that, it makes me think if it's more a competition issue or if it's more than hijacking or things along those lines. So I think we don't necessarily have to go into a model where that's enforced across the board. I think every advertiser and every publisher should talk, sit down, understand what the value looks like, understand what the data looks like, also the numbers, because I think there's also a scale issue, right? And we talked about it before. I think I read a study that it's a bit biased. Obviously, the data is not perfect, but as far as we could see in that study, investments in browser extensions were 0.13%
Yeah, this
of
is
the affiliate.
APMA. I think
Exactly. So assuming there is a margin of error which is abundant and quite big, it would still be 2%, right? So or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think part of the problem with the intransparency is it's not always clear how much traffic going through an account is from the extension or is from the web, is from something else. I think that needs to improve. I don't think soft click is the end solution. I think it is the guardrail that allows us to get to a better solution. And I think whilst we're trying to improve transparency, my position would be I would prefer to protect and have these things in place until you get to the point where the traffic is transparent, we understand exactly how it's behaving, it is behaving the way that it says it is. Get to that point of trust, then I think we can have a different conversation. But for now, I think there has to be sort of an assumption that you have to protect first and then look to remove some of those protections later.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask if there were any questions. Someone's putting their hand up now.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, hold on. Thank you. What if we have the case, so on a subnetwork, there are sub-publishers, they have extensions without any advantages for the user. They are just injecting the cookies, mostly shortly before the sale.
Yeah.
These things are not covered with everything you said so far. So.
They are if you put the subnetwork on SoftClick, which is actually what we've done in instances where we can't verify that all of the traffic is there. So I would point out that what you're describing is like the worst case scenario, right? Like not all extensions are behaving like that. There are bad actors. So yeah, I think that the truth is, again, the level of transparency needs to go up to the subnetwork. They need to be clear, what are the different partners that are on there? Are there browser extensions? If they're browser extensions, they should be tracked through a separate account, or it should be clear that they're done, and then maybe software should apply to them. I personally don't love the idea of browser extensions working through subnetworks. I don't see the value of it personally, and I would lean towards not allowing it. Yeah.
To someone.
But I do also want to say it's sort of sad, and I understand it, but this idea that browser extensions are just there to steal the cookie or to steal the sale. It's I think also publishers maybe need to do a better job of explaining how these things work. And I think the whole Mega Lab situation exploded because of that lack of transparency and knowledge from the industry as well. So yeah, it's a pending topic. But I can say one thing, which is, some users love it. It's very convenient, saves a lot of time, creates rewarding moments when you manage to get cashback out of a sale, but obviously you can't just assume that they're there to steal something. Also, again, scale, right? Browser extensions are not available on mobile. Most of the user journeys are actually on mobile at this point, or at least as far as we can see, it's going up, right? I remember a few years ago it was 50%, it got to 60%. So yeah, I feel bad for this solution being sort of frowned upon as a scapegoat sometimes when they don't always deserve it. And the ones who do because they do bad things, unfortunately you always have bad actors. And that's why transparency and scrutiny, it's necessary.
Sorry, I know you're about to, but we're getting very close to the end, and I'm not like you, I'm going to finish on time. So, but let me round things off by just looking to the future quickly. And Lily Ray's keynote, obviously earlier, was really, really fascinating. I think particularly talking about the role of search and AI overviews and ChatGPT potentially cutting out that entire shopping funnel that we, the industry at large, are reliant upon. What does that mean potentially? Like you collapse that funnel, that shopping experience. If you've got agentic shopping assistants kind of sourcing what you need directly from the advertiser, you can just go straight through. Specifically, I guess, in terms of browser extensions, is there value to be had still there? Do they need to adapt and evolve in that new world?
The purpose, again, I think it's useful to talk specifically about what the extension is doing. For me, the extensions I use are the cashback reminders extensions. I'm a cashback customer, I understand it. I don't necessarily want to have to go to the website every time. Like it's super valuable. So like if I'm not using my browser anymore, I don't need the browser extension anymore. I suspect I'll still be using my browser, so I still want the ability there. What I think is important is that I want to be sure that just because I have an extension, that extension is behaving in a way that is appropriate for the channel, right? I think as long as that's happening, then extensions will have value as long as the user downloads them, because that extension will be there. As to the like upending of the consumer journey, I think it's the same thing, right? Like whether you're collapsing the journey by having the extension in the browser rather than me having to go somewhere else, or getting the offer in the ChatGPT response instead, they're kind of doing similar things, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's both this type of value.
Yeah, I agree with you. And who knows what will happen? I mean, shopping assistants will change the industry. In the first day, I remember there was a mention. Well, Sam Altman said it, right? He mentioned affiliate as a means to monetize whatever comes in the future, which is a great opportunity. I guess we'll have to innovate and see. I don't think people will stop using, desktop or Chrome and all of these things. Rome didn't fall in 2 days, right? But over time we'll see how it evolves. It'll be interesting. It brings new opportunities.
Great. Are we pretty much at time? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.